Hey everybody, welcome to TYT. It's Friday. Some people still have jobs, but not most of America. We have stuff to do. Anna is not here, Cenk is not here. Only the FCC rules apply today. And to get us through this, we have Nando Vila, host of Weekends on Jacobin. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Brett. I feel like I need a drink. Let's drink. What's going on here?
100%. Happy half hour will be happening this today after post game. We have a comedian named Brian Parisi on, and Common Room is also happening later on today. We have John Idarola, Francesca Fiorentini, and Sloan Hughes from Funny or Die. She's a great comedian. Also Cotton Can Daddy on Twitter, so you might have seen some of her tweets. What can we look forward to on your Jacobin show this weekend?
We're gonna dunk on Neera Tanden, which will be fun, and we're gonna do a segment on Amazon and their unionization drive in Alabama, which is a small glimmer of hope in these bleak times. So yeah. We also have Corey Robin on the show, who's a very, 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 very smart person and very good chronicler of the conservative movement. Wrote a book called The Reactionary Mind, which everyone should read to understand the American right.
Oh, dang, I love that. I will read that. I've been looking for something to read that isn't just terrible, terrible news. I will say special thanks to everybody watching. We've got a hype train going right now on Twitch. And a little note, it is TYT Gives Back this December. So during December, the top 3 gifters on Twitch will get a special mystery box from us. But if you're not in the top 3, don't worry. Mystery boxes sounds really gross. But
it sounds pretty cool to me.
Okay, great. There's a mystery box. What's in the box? It's what's in the box December.
Yeah.
And if you're not in the top 3, don't worry about it. It is totally okay. We are picking, of the top 10 gifters, we're picking one at random to get a bonus mystery box. So look out for that.
Bonus mystery box. An
additional non-top 3 mystery box. I don't know what's in it, and that's kind of the point. So that's fantastic. We have a lot of great show to get to. There is a little bit more housekeeping as people funnel in to start watching and listening. Save the date. We have a Georgia special coming up. Georgia has an important runoff election that will determine who gets the Senate majority. Find out how you can get involved at tyt.com/vote. And then tune in for the special Monday, December 14th for our Flip Georgia Get Out the Vote special starring Cenk, John, Benjamin Dixon, and Ida Rodriguez at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific at youtube.com/live, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and all linear platforms. So that's another thing to look out for. Something else, Samsung TV Plus. We are on Samsung TV Plus mobile. Download the free Samsung TV Plus app and take TYT anywhere you go, exclusive on select Samsung Galaxy devices. It's free TV with no strings attached. Download today at tyt.com/Samsung TV and find us on channel 1032. And the last little bit of housekeeping, shop TYT's last chance sale. Just because you didn't get in on 10 days of Black Friday, don't worry about it. Tomorrow is your last chance to check off your gift list. Grab your Shop TYT merch by tomorrow to receive it by Christmas, 12/25. To receive, I believe the full name of Christmas is War on Christmas. Get free shipping on all orders over $50 at shoptyt.com. So that's what's going on. And also next week, this is it. I'm as producer, Brett, I know all this stuff and I want to make sure you hear it. Next week, we're going back to a 2-hour show. So just remember that. Anna will host the first hour. JR is going to do the second hour for the first 2 weeks. Then it'll be Anna and Cenk for 2 full hours plus post game. And the post games will go back to them talking nonsense like they did a little yesterday. Nonsense either superficial or wildly deep and unexpected. That's what's so great about this. We have a lot of show for you. So much amazing stuff to cover, from whether there will be a COVID aid package to whether there will be martial law in America and Karens at each other's throats. Are you ready for it, Nando?
Very ready. Was born ready, baby.
Let's do it. All right, the first story is about Biden's progressive cabinet or lack thereof. Okay, So Biden has unveiled a handful of names that are gonna be his cabinet picks. Does he think that any of them actually appeal to progressives? I could tell you, but Jake Tapper actually asked Kamala Harris what she thought about it. And her answer is perhaps the most telling of them all.
Last month, Senator Bernie Sanders told the Associated Press it would be, quote, enormously insulting if your cabinet, the Biden-Harris cabinet, ignored progressive voices. Who would you point to now as a leading progressive voice in the cabinet?
Well, we're not done yet, Jake. So we're not even halfway there. So I think that we should have this conversation when we're done. But
is this another interview offer you're making? Because I'll take it.
Do you consider yourself a progressive?
No.
Department of Homeland Security.
Homeland Security?
Yeah, no, I'm serious.
He's a progressive.
Yeah, and there's a number of progressives that are.
So we have that. Okay, that was just an amazingly telling everything about that. But Nando, what did you see in that response?
First of all, there was a sort of miscommunication between Kamala and Jake Tapper. She misunderstood his joke, where he was like, "Oh, this is another interview." Because she's like, "No." She thought he was talking about interviewing for the cabinet. He's like, "No, I want you to." Anyway, misunderstanding. But this is what losing looks like. The left lost and they won, and they drink our milkshake, and they are gonna appoint their people. They're not gonna appoint our people ever. This was never gonna happen. There is no leverage. There is no, in our system, there is no mechanism for a sort of coalition within a broader coalition to exert power. We can't walk away and they're gonna collapse like you would in a parliamentary system. So it was never gonna be a progressive cabinet, and it's just not gonna be. So this Kamala really funny, just wait till you see who the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development is. He is as left as they come. He is he's a very own Karl Marx. This guy, no, this.
It's Eric Garcetti.
Right, yeah, he's woof. He was he dated a communist Frenchie when he went abroad in college. Yeah, man, he is a progressive. No, yeah, I'm not holding my breath because they were never gonna do it, and they won't. So, yeah, that's just the reality of the situation, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, for me, he asked the question and there was a silence.
Yeah, it's how do they not prepare an answer?
Oh, dude, this morning I was watching CNN. That's when I first saw the clip. And I know that our head of programming sent it to me last night. I just didn't see it till this morning. So sorry, Judith. But essentially I saw it on CNN. And the way it was pitched was there's questions about diversity in Biden's cabinet. And they play that clip. They play the first one where they're talking about this is the most, we want it to look like America, and there's diversity. And then they cut to this moment. And I was like, well, that's the most interesting thing because they don't have an answer for it. And then the host just goes on and completely ignores that happened during the interview. And yes, she was talking with Angela Rye, who has a career that's more focused on diversity as it's conventionally understood. But I think that points out something else that's wrong with cable news in general. The reason that they didn't focus on the progressive part of that interview with Jake Tapper is because there's no progressive on those shows ever to be able to do that.
It's very shocking. You would think that from a cold capitalist point of view, they would at least have a few people on CNN who could speak to for example, the overwhelming majority of voters under 40, who support kind of very broad left policies. Yeah, no one on CNN, not a single person. They have all manner of national security ghouls who no one cares about. No one cares about what the former undersecretary of the Department of National Security for Western Hemispheric Affairs has to say about whatever the hell is going on in the news these days. That's just, but they have tons of those guys. They would never ever hire a proper, progressive to be on there regularly. It's just outside of it doesn't even exist in their horizon.
Yeah, absolutely. It is wildly wildly frustrating. And they had like Alexandra Rojas on there during the campaigns. But I'll tell you why, man. And we say this, it's been said on the show, but now I have like a little, this is too much information, but I have like a little thing in my shower where I can put my phone and watch TV while I'm like getting ready in the morning. And so I get to watch CNN at the same time every day. And I saw this today. And at the same
while you were scrubbing your pits.
Well, I'm just washing 2020 off of my body, singing in the bathtub. So I'm doing that. But here's what happens every day at the same time. It's commercials about Medicare expansions, supplemental Medicare stuff. It is all pharmaceutical ads. And for the last week, it's been CEOs of major pharmacies and companies talking about how they are going to execute the distribution of the vaccine. And it's like, thank you so much, CVS, for your service. So when you make points about whether they're gonna have like progressive voices in there to bring it to the like CNN demos attention that most Americans actually do agree with the policy like Medicare for all, they're not gonna, I think that is the financial motivation not to. They have John Kasich on there, and I saw John Kasich every time he's on there, he mispronounces green. He missays Green New Deal is New Green Deal, and he does it on purpose. It's very
John Kasich, who spoke at the DNC and is now part of the resistance. It drives me crazy. Like it really does. It's so bleak in that sense that and it brings up an interesting question because cable news, we hate it. But it was shown in the primary and in the election cycle that it really does kind of drive the narrative in a lot of the politics that happen in this country, and really like even if like a certain number of people are like a smallish number of people are actually watching at any given moment, that narrative kind of permeates down, trickles down, so to speak, to other kind of sources that people consume, whether it's on social media or whatever, and it really did have a major effect, and we are completely shut out from that. We're just completely shut out. And what do we do about that? Like, what is there to be done? I mean, obviously there's like the TYT, independent voices, but like, do we have access to the Death Star? No, we don't have access to the Death Star. We're not invited to those parties.
We have access to the Death Star. We're all on the take from George Soros. Don't you understand? That's what's so frustrating is we get all the negative sides of being accused of having these giant corporate donors, but none of the benefits of that actually being the case.
Yeah. No, you would quadruple your salary and just start spouting off. Well, Medicare, for all very expensive. I don't know if we can afford it.
I would
pay all this money.
I would, but nobody else at this company would. I would do it in a heartbeat. I don't know. I would do it in a heartbeat for about 4 minutes, and then just my head and walk away. Yeah. Here's what Bernie Sanders said that Joe Biden that they were asked about. This is the full quote. It seems to be pretty clear that progressive views need to be expressed within a Biden administration. It would be, for example, enormously insulting if Biden put together a quote team of rivals. And there's some discussion that's what he intends to do, which might include Republicans and conservative Democrats, but which ignored the progressive community. I think that would be very, very unfortunate. There was an article in Politico that kind of outlined the progressive reaction to Biden's appointees so far. Someone that it seems from Biden's reaction when he jumps in is like, no. We've got
who's that Hispanic guy I got at Homeland Security? What was his name again?
Yeah, I got him. I forget his name. I deleted it by accident. Alejandro Mayorkas. I got that guy. Yeah, it's fine. I got it. That's it. Question answered. But here's how they respond. This is a Political article. Anthony Blinken, a quote solid choice for Secretary of State, according to Faz Shakir, Bernie Sanders' 2020 campaign manager. Alexandra Rojas from Justice Democrats said she's encouraged that Biden tapped John Kerry as his international climate czar. Elizabeth Warren said Janet Yellen, Biden's expected nominee for Treasury Secretary, would be outstanding. And I know there were a lot. I mean, that's true. Here's the next is from a progressive strategist, Rebecca Katz, who said, it could have been a lot worse. He's not picking any lefties. He's just picking people who haven't alienated the left who are listening. But and I think she's accurately appraising the situation. I think that was her intent, was just to say, listen, he hasn't yet said that what's his name, Rahm Emanuel is in charge of it. It's looming, and he just is actively picking people who haven't alienated the left. And to the point,
like Neera Tanden, my God, like they're just like she was on the front line of the centrist Democrat war against the left. She is the frontline soldier. She is, storming no man's land. That is, I mean, here's what kind of I find sort of very. I mean, I understand that Bernie and they have to play nice at a certain point. They don't want to be completely frozen out. They want to have some degree of influence, and I get that why they're playing nice. But what drives me crazy is that Democrats. It's very likely that Joe Biden will nominate a Republican to be in his cabinet in some way. Obama nominated Republicans. Bob Gates was a Republican. He was the Secretary of Defense that Obama nominated in 2008. It is literally unimaginable for any Republican to nominate even the most conservative Democrat to their cabinet. Like, can you imagine like a President Rubio nominating whoever, Chuck Schumer to be his Secretary of Treasury or whatever? Like, it's so unimaginable. They would never do that ever in their lives, because they know that American politics is polarized and that it is a war, and that you have to, like, there is no negotiating with terrorists, that you don't get any brownie points for putting in like the sort of soft Republican in there. You get 0 brownie points for that. And it just drives me crazy that they constantly think they can do that. Like this, a team of rivals, which that phrase has to be retired once and for all, forever. But yeah, I mean, it speaks to the asymmetry in American politics, which is one of the reasons why we keep drifting further and further to the right. We have this insane frothing at the mouth far right party that understands naked raw use of power, and then we have this center right party, the Democrats, who don't understand anything about power and just constantly think that they can placate the terrorists on the right, and they cannot, and they will never will, and they just keep their Charlie Brown, trying to kick the football, and it keeps getting pulled away.
Yeah, 100%. And like with the Neera Tanden thing, it's like when a grandparent buys something for their grandkid. This is what I'm afraid they think, and this is evidenced by Biden's reaction, like, no, I got the Homeland Security, huh?
Hispanic dude. He had no idea what his name was. It's so clear he had no idea what his name was. It's so obvious.
So sad. I don't even want to go think that. But as evidence, and we got that for you. It's like when a grandparent who's out of touch with trends buys something for their grandkid, and the grandkid's like, this is not the cool thing right now. I don't want to. But like, did you think it was? That's so sad. I don't know. And then just the final little bit of this. This is so sad. Alexi McCammon writes in Axios. Some progressives tell Axios they believe the window for influencing President-elect Biden's cabinet selections is closed, and they're shifting focus to policy, hoping to shape Biden's agenda even before he's sworn in. So the question is, he said, according to Bernie and Biden himself, he kind of wants to be the next FDR. So let's push policies that help that, whether that will ever happen, as the Democrats prove their fecklessness in negotiating the middle ground in a way that is materially actually middle ground. It remains to be seen, but it does not look good. So let's get into that right now with the Problem Solvers Caucus's new.
The Problem Solvers Caucus is one of my favorite caucus names.
Okay, yeah. So before the election, the question was, are we gonna go for a $2 billion aid package that the Democrats are pushing for, or a $1.8 billion aid package that Mnuchin? Sorry, yeah, let me start over. But it might be billion by the end of the day.
It'll end up being that.
Sorry, let me do that again. So before the election, here we go. Before the election, it was a question as to whether we would get a $2 trillion aid package that Pelosi and the Democrats are pushing for, or a $1.8 trillion aid package that the White House was pushing for. And they kept negotiating, and nothing happened. And now it's post-election time, and it looks like they might have landed on half of the lowball bid. $908 billion in COVID aid, which is not a lot of money. So to really capture a soul-crushing aspect of it, here is the latest news as announced by Fox Business. Take a look.
Well, Joe Biden is throwing support behind a bipartisan $908 billion COVID relief package. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell saying compromise is within reach. Even President Trump says it's close. So is this package more important than just ending the lockdowns? And I don't mean to be rude about this, but when and how will we pay the bills?
Jesus.
There. Good Christ. Be rude here. I mean, I wasn't rude. We were giving trillions in tax cuts to the people who watch my show, but I'm going to pay for this thing. And I don't know. So Biden's behind it. Pelosi's behind it. What's in it? Here is a Lauren Egan from NBC News writes, their support renews hope that the Congress could approve aid before the end of the year. This is Pelosi and Schumer's support. The proposal would provide an extra $300 a week in unemployment payments and extend help to cash-strapped local governments, as well as provide support for small business, transit systems, and airlines. What's not in it? The plan does not renew the federal moratorium on evictions that's set to expire at the end of the year. A second round of $1,200 stimulus checks, although supported by congressional Democrats and the president of the United States, is also not included in the bipartisan framework. Democrats push for hazard pay, which could provide bonuses to essential workers and healthcare professionals who have put their lives in danger during the pandemic, was also excluded from the plan. Or if you like a more visual representation from Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, COVID relief bill does not include enhanced unemployment benefits, workplace protections, paid sick leave, direct cash payments to individuals, national eviction and foreclosure moratorium, rental assistance fails to meet the scale and scope of the crisis we're facing. So Nanda, what are your thoughts?
I mean, obviously, like it's just unbelievably bleak and depressing, because the scale of this crisis is almost like impossible to wrap your mind around. Just like the scale of the economic harm is going to be with us for the next decade or even more. And just the complete and utter failure of our leadership class to deal with something like this is going to have political reverberations that we just can't foresee right now. The Democrats gave away their leverage when they passed the CARES Act. I mean, that's just the bottom line of the Republic. Mitch McConnell has no incentive to pass any of this. I mean, Trump had an incentive because he needed to win the election, and there seems pretty clear to me that the stimulus that he passed in the summer probably helped him a lot politically. It's probably why he did better than people expected. But when the Democrats kind of passed the CARES Act and they didn't tie it to certain health indicators, and it just ended in August, essentially. The Republicans got everything they wanted. They got the massive transfer to corporations. They got the bailout. They got the $4 trillion to corporations. Mitch McConnell would like a 5-year protection for all corporations for liability from coronavirus. He'd like that, but he's fine not giving any stimulus if he doesn't need to. So even if this bipartisan deal was kind of embraced by the president, like I just don't see why Mitch McConnell was not a part of the problem solvers caucus who hatched this bipartisan compromise. So he's going to compromise on the compromise. It's going to end up being like an absolute pittance that will just, I mean, it might there might be some appropriations for like actually developing and distributing the vaccine. But in terms of economic relief to people, to real struggling people who have no way of working because the economy is basically stopped, they're not gonna, it's just not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen.
And like state governments are faced with this decision. Like last time they did do some form of lockdown, and it did stem the spread of this disease. Right. That's what the dip was after it began. Like, they did it, and they're gonna have to do it again. The only difference is now there isn't gonna be that lifeline.
Yeah. There's no, yeah. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say about those liability protections, also from Lauren Egan at NBC News. The proposal includes liability protections for businesses that remain open during the pandemic, a provision that has been a non-starter for Pelosi and Schumer in the past.
Yeah. It's a license to kill, and essentially, like, for a business, you could just, like, flaunt every single COVID regulation, safety measure for their workers, and if the worker gets sick and dies, like, they're not liable in any way. But yeah, I mean, the state, I mean, I almost feel bad for someone like Gavin Newsom, who I despise on almost every level. But I almost feel bad for him because he's seeing the numbers and he wants to, like, I probably know that in his bones he knows he wants to lock down, but without any federal aid, a state can't run a deficit. So shutting down the economy means that the state revenues get starved, and he has to, like, fire millions of teachers and police officers and firefighters. Like, it's like, it's an impossible choice in many ways. And without the federal aid, like, the governors, like, are really under the gun because they're really between a rock and a hard place. It's just our insane system in which states can't run deficits, in which only the federal government can run a deficit, yet states are empowered to make all these decisions. Like, it just shows, like, just how broken and dysfunctional our system is at almost every level, and just how ill-equipped our leaders are, and unwilling and just brazenly, like, sociopathically willing to let hundreds of thousands of people die because they keep on asking the question, but how are we going to pay for it?
Yeah. There were some other questions asked during as this was all developing, so I want to talk about Nancy Pelosi for a second. Yeah, so Nancy Pelosi was asked, why is she supporting this new deal for COVID aid that is one half of her original offer of $2 billion, actually less than that, $2 trillion, actually less than that. And so some of these questions came up during a press conference that she had. Here is her reaction.
I don't want to in any way undermine the great bipartisan negotiations that are going on between the Democrats and Republicans. Senator Shelby, as the chair of the Appropriations Committee in the Senate, Nita Lowey as the chair in the House, their staffs working together. So don't worry about a date. It will be in sufficient time for us to get it done.
So she is really excited about being a master legislator who's able to orchestrate all this this movement when her offer has been undercut by more than 50%, and that's fine with her. Sure, I'm sure she's stoked about that. And then also, like, what is her other move? This is now she's basically saying in that clip that she wants to throw it into the omnibus spending bill so it can't get shut down, or you have to shut down the entire government. Is that a giant move? That happens all the time. Everybody always chucks something into the spending bill because you get around a filibuster. And the other threat is that you would shut down the government. Like, that's not a groundbreaking deal. It's so nuts. But I do want to say, here's her other thing that's actually more infuriating. Asked why she's in favor of this bill. Why the big change, Nancy? Here's what she said.
Joe Biden committed to ending and crushing the virus and having a Build a Better America initiative, Build Back Better, a vaccine, answer to our prayers, an answer to our prayers of 95% effectiveness in terms of Pfizer and Moderna, and there may be others coming forward. That is a total game changer. A new president and a vaccine.
So a president and a vaccine, even though the vaccine won't really be available till April for most people. And that's just the first dose of 2 for some of those vaccines. Nando, are you buying it?
I mean, I don't even want to think about what the the absolute mess and chaos that will be the vaccine rollout is going to look like. I mean, you could already start to imagine it. Just completely. Our institutions are so rotten at their core that these basic functions of the government are very difficult, even in the best of times. And not to mention just like the radicalized base that may be like totally against it because it's coming from a Democratic president. Who's going to get it first? The mad dash. I mean, I'm already seeing that like Wall Street bankers are trying to position themselves right after healthcare workers as the second line in hierarchy to get the vaccine. But it's one of those things. I mean, they will need billions of dollars to manage the rollout. Like they're gonna need tens of billions of dollars. They need a lot of money to be able to distribute, mass produce, get it in the hands of people, keep them like cold. I mean, that's like another thing. Like they got to keep them like something like insanely cold. They desperately need this in some way, which does not exist right now. They need to pass some sort of bill to appropriate tens of billions of dollars to even get that most bare minimum thing, which is distributing the vaccine. So I guess do it in the omnibus spending bill, but like I don't know.
But even still, like Mitch McConnell has not said he signed on to this, and he was mum the whole time. And as pointed out in a video we played earlier, Mitch McConnell says, I want to make sure the president will sign on to this. Dudes. The president was willing to sign on to $1.8 trillion.
Yeah.
For Mitch McConnell to currently hide behind what Trump will sign off on is absolute BS. And AOC puts it really, really well. She says in a tweet, Canada did a $2,000 monthly bill. The US is the richest nation on earth, and a second stimulus check is getting blocked by the GOP because the GOP wants corporate bailouts and austerity in exchange for it. Maybe if everyone in the US incorporated under an LLC, Mitch McConnell would actually do something for them.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right, we got to take a
go ahead. Well, just very quickly, you want to take a break? Let's take a break.
Let's take a break, man. We can talk about it during the break. If you're watching on Linear, we're gonna take a break. If you're watching on our social channels, we're gonna answer your viewer comments after this.
They had things, levels of voting that if you ever agreed to it, you'd never have a Republican elected in this country again.
We don't run our own country. We've lost our democracy, and all we have left is rage.
Where are the Democrats? I would be on every cable news channel screaming and yelling and talking about what the Republicans are doing right now.
How do you expect us to get excited to show up to the polls for these loser Democrats? How come we have nothing but cowards? We'll never fight. Primaries are everything.
Building a great wall on the southern border.
You have politicians who fearmonger about disenfranchised groups.
The first attacker came through the visa lottery.
Now they are against legal immigrants.
Ending chain migration.
They don't want people from those countries coming here because they're fucking racist. This guy's an absolute monumental disgrace to all of us as Americans.
Stop treating us like animals and bugs and start treating us with some respect.
That is what I was warning about for literally years on this program. This is what they promised they would do if they got into power, and what do you know? They did it.
I've now shown dozens of videos on the Young Turks of cops handcuffing people who are bleeding to death. His life means nothing. We have been trained to be cowards, so we're gonna handcuff that guy bleeding to death.
When it comes to these protesters who are justifiably enraged at members of their community getting gunned down and murdered by police force.
We are a physical representation of our support for George Floyd.
They said that this was impossible, but now we're beginning to move that boulder. And at the end, we'll get our democracy back. Primary the living hell out of these Democrats, and let's take over the party. That's a ghost ship. Let's board it, and let's take it.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Damage Report, another week of the news. I am John Idarola, and we've got a doozy of a show for you. My God, is DC up its own ass today. We have put someone into power in our country who is so crazy, they have finally out-crazied North Korea.
The US is the only country in the world that isn't part of the Paris Climate Accord.
Yesterday, Donald Trump did exactly what he told us. He pulled the US out of the Iran nuclear accord.
So we need to see snuff videos of how you're killing people on the streets in order for you to believe us that this has been a problem. We need to change things.
I was gonna say we've been dealing with the issue of lead poisoning in this country, but that would imply that we're really doing something. We have an issue with lead poisoning and it continues. So 60 people are now dead. Some of them grandmothers, many of them children. The silence of politicians on both sides of the aisle. Just about only Bernie Sanders, maybe Tulsi Gabbard, and a few others have actually been critical of what happened there. And the rest are cowards hiding behind silence, refusing to admit what happened yesterday.
We have to be able to accept that we do things wrong in this country. You can fix and change things, make things even.
What's great about our country, and this is a great example of it, is everybody's pissed off. This is a damage report, and it's all about the threats facing us each day. When something's relevant, and it's hot, and it's in the news, you're not supposed to talk about it. Can we start talking about it now?
I often think about the terror that my grandmother was under till she was 8 or 9 years old, and how horrific that experience must have been in this state of discomfort for the benefit of other people.
People will still treat you like you're the problem. That's what we mean when we say living well black. We're just trying to live our best life. We're trying to be the best that we can be. And we're frustrated and tired of people treating us like we're criminals.
All right, welcome back, everybody. That was a fun break. I always love those breaks. For everybody, just know that during the breaks, we read viewer comments to people who are watching on our social media, like YouTube Live and Twitch. And subscribers on Twitch definitely will see them, because if you're a subscriber, you don't have to watch ads. It's one of the perks. Very, very. All right, you ready to get into this Pentagon martial law, brink of insanity story, Nando?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, here we go. With just a month left to go in Trump's one-term presidency, he's attempting to surround himself with like-minded conspiracy theorists. Isn't that nice? I guess when you're the president, you get to do stuff like that. His latest nomination is a former fighter pilot named Scott O'Grady, who he nominated recently to become the Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security Affairs at the Pentagon. In addition to mirroring the president's endless stream of baseless election fraud claims on Twitter, O'Grady has also joined the chorus of pro-Trump supporters that want him to declare martial law. So let's get into that. It's always nice on a Friday. On November 25th, O'Grady retweeted a tweet that said, quote, "Trump won and Biden and his cabinet and his comrades, Biden and his comrades now attempt the coup," next to a photoshopped image of Biden beside Xi Jinping, the president of China. I don't know if this was the exact one, but this is from Lin Wood, so I assume it is.
Oh, hell yeah. That's that's just great. You love to see it. Love it.
So that's one. We're gonna go through these. This is who Trump is left to as his option.
This guy's gonna get elected. I mean, we laugh, but this guy's gonna get elected to Congress in 2022. Like, mark my words. Scott O'Grady, sponsored by like Jameson Irish Pub, Irish whiskey, is gonna get elected to Congress on this kind of platform. I promise you that. It's not. I'm betting on it.
It's so crazy. There's more crazy. On November 19th, O'Grady retweeted a tweet that falsely claimed Hillary Clinton and George Soros were involved in allowing foreign interference in the presidential election. False by your account.
Yeah. Do we know that they weren't involved? Yeah, come on.
It says it in the tweet, and the burden of proof is on whoever's reading this. On November 25th, O'Grady retweeted a baseless accusation that Brian Kemp and Brad Raffensperger, the governor and secretary of state of Georgia, respectively, may be covering up information about election results in Georgia. And on November 27th, O'Grady retweeted the false claim that Trump won California, despite the fact that Trump lost the state by more than 5 million votes. So that is like the ones that he actively retweeted, but he has kind of affiliated himself by retweeting stuff from the account that Michael Flynn retweeted about martial law. He tips his toes in the martial law pool in support of Trump's elementary coup attempt. On December 2nd, he retweeted an account that shared an article that said former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn had shared a petition that called for martial law. He then retweeted the same account that suggested that Trump should declare martial law. Now, this is the account, but so he hasn't tweeted that, but all the other stuff, I feel like in any other administration would be absolutely disqualifying, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is part of politics, American politics in 2020, which is that the inmates have taken over the asylum, and for decades, the Republican Party essentially kind of threw insanity at their base to kind of rile them up, while they themselves kind of read the Wall Street Journal and the Weekly Standard, which were like more sober, kind of conservative things, which were more based in reality and all this stuff. And they kind of allowed Fox News and right-wing talk radio guys like Rush Limbaugh to just sort of like rile up the rubes, to whip up votes for their very unpopular kind of platform in general, through like, things like racism, xenophobia, victimization and white identity politics. But now all of those people kind of grew up, and they've all now just taken power, and now they are the ones, they're reading all the same things that the rubes were reading in the past, and they believe all that stuff. I mean, there's people in Congress who believe all this stuff, and there's now people in the State Department who believe this stuff, and in the Pentagon who believe this stuff. I mean, it's like, I mean, like the Bush administration, as destructive and awful as it was, and it was incredibly like historically destructive and awful, like those people did not believe any of this stuff. They weren't like Alex Jones, fans, and like that's no longer the case. The inmates are running the asylum. So that's why I'm saying that this guy is gonna get elected to Congress. I'm calling it right now, because that's just American politics these days.
It's so crazy. And there's so many more examples. Like in a radio interview, he called former President Barack Obama and military generals sworn socialists and advocated the military justice system should bring back treason charges. He retweeted a tweet that called the former Defense Secretary Mattis a traitor. He, went after Lieutenant Vindman, basically a whistleblower, saying like, that's it. It's crazy. On November 25th, he retweeted a tweet that asked if the COVID-19 virus was partisan, since it seemed to be disproportionately impacting Republican politicians over Democrats. And this goes to the heart of what you were saying, right? Like, it's not that you're saying the science is partisan against Republicans. No, Republicans are actively arguing against science. That's why the science is against them, because they read it or they don't. But they definitely crumple whatever paper it was on up and throw it in the dustbin. And then, that's the causal mechanism, buddy. It's like, you can't be like, oh, I wonder why science is so against everything I'm saying. Yeah, because you're willfully ignorant, or worse, just stupid. But it's a cynical thing.
What is this guy? He's like a new nominee. Like he's got like 3 weeks. Like, what's he gonna do?
Well, that's the big fear, is that, Trump has gotten rid of a lot of Department of Defense people lately, and just wiped the slate clean. And the question you ask, the answer to it is terrifying. The answer to it could be that he is trying with all his might to at least get surrounded by people who would be fine with martial law and quote calling a revote. Is there anyone who thinks that if we had a revote, first of all, it's never gonna happen, you can't have it happen. But does anyone think that revote, look at other countries that are like, no, the military is gonna hold a vote for us. Do those ever turn out to be like, 51 to 49? No, it'll be like 95 to 4. And it's horrible. Anyway, so that's what we're talking about. We do have to take another break. So when we come back, we got a lot more for you. We're gonna show you what's happening during all of this, as Fox News is absolutely terrified that Sean Hannity has too much power, not because he's spreading insanity, but because it means he might leave them. And oh my goodness, would they have an audience? Don't go away.
We get animated about the news. Yes, we're not the robots on TV. I actually care about the news. Guilty, I care.
Senator Sanders, I'm gonna do something unusual. I'm gonna ask you a policy question.
How dare you? That's the problem, you're the problem. Don't ever attack the Republicans. Where the is the liberal media. No. These are all establishment guys. They love the system as it is. They're all enormously rich off the system that exists.
For us, this system isn't working.
So what this campaign is about is trying to create an economy that works not only for the people on top, but works for all Americans.
We're gonna rock the boat. We're gonna be counter-establishment. We're gonna tell people the truth to the best of our abilities, and we're gonna keep it real with them.
It's winter, and it's cold this time of year, isn't it? Well, it might feel chilly, and the wind might bite at your nose. Maybe you want to snuggle up with a hot chocolate, or wrap up warm and wear your biggest coat. But in the grand scheme of things, our earth is too hot, and it's getting even hotter. Our seasons are getting confused. Lots of birds are nesting earlier, and spring flowers are coming out too soon. This is what climate change looks like. It's affecting so many of the things we love, both here in our own backyards and around the world. But we have hope because we know that together we can protect them if we act now and everyone does their bit. So this Christmas, give a gift of love and show the world you care.
How in the world are you going to get the right to vote if you don't already have the right to vote? That's impossible. Reason they tell you things are impossible is because they don't want you to try. It only took 7 years for them to get an amendment to get a right to vote.
Does this result in millions upon millions of Americans losing their coverage? And we've been waiting to find out, and now we know, yes, it will cut millions.
Public education was supposed to be the way to equalize everyone regardless of their socioeconomic status. But if you come from a family that's poor, how are you gonna afford grade school for your kids?
This fight is about fairness and morality. It's about the American values.
You think that black people all across the country, in every city, were all lying when they said the police abuse and the police kill us when they should? No, of course they weren't lying. Yes, it does happen. Yes, they do get targeted more.
Why are we going to put immigrants in prison for 5 years, which American taxpayers have to pay for, if we're so concerned with immigrants using up our so-called resources?
We're gonna do both. We're gonna fight Trump and we're gonna fight the establishment. It's not that hard. Yes, you can do both at the same time. Go tell them.
ShopTYT.com has new shirts like this one. And you're thinking, Cenk, what is that one? I can't see it other than the black. Yes, so I'll show it to you. If you can read this, you're not practicing social distancing. Yes! Now, you were practicing social distancing. This is over video. But overall, you get it, ShopTYT.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Brett Ehrlich here with Nando Calrissian. Soon to be on Twitch, Nando Calrissian. Yeah, so I'm gonna take a drink of this because I didn't have a chance to during the break.
Yeah.
What a good day. All right, we have very little time, so let's get right into the next story. Conservative media is imploding, as the president himself does, and I love every second of it. We talked about Lin Wood, the attorney, the other day. He is involved in this, but what I love about the implosion is you get more and more people are getting involved. You're gonna get some new stars that are getting in there, and some old stars you forgot were alive are getting in on the action. We'll give you all of that, but let me set it up a little bit. So much depends on the results in the Georgia Senate race. The GOP really needs MAGA to come out in force, but what's working against them is that the president is calling every bit of every vote that's ever been cast illegitimate. So there are folks calling for MAGA to boycott the Georgia Senate race.
It was so good.
Because it's all BS anyway. And a potentially grifting, potentially everyone's like kind of split over whether this guy Lin Wood, the attorney, is meaning it or not when he says stuff like this.
Where's Kelly Loeffler here? Where's David Perdue? He ought to be standing right here. Those two people want your vote, then they ought to tell you what we're telling Brian Kemp. This is Georgia. We ain't dumb. We're not going to go vote on January 5th in another machine made by China. If Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue do not do it, they have not earned your vote. Don't you give it to them.
You love to see it. It's just.
He's absolutely perfect. So in reaction to this, as I talk about the news stars, Dan Crenshaw from Texas, best friend of Hassan Piker, says Lin Wood is a Democrat that wants Republicans to self-destruct just before he wears a MAGA hat. Just because he wears a MAGA hat doesn't mean that he shares a single value with you. He just wants your donations for his legal fees. He's a grifter. Vote in Georgia. Protect the accomplishments of the last 4 years. A lot to get into there, but I'll give you Michelle Malkin, one of the people that I forgot ever existed until now, emerged from Newsmax, which I also forgot existed until people left Fox for it. Says Dan Crenshaw is a globalist, John McCain in an eyepatch who loves to party hardy. Not even what? Who loves to party hardy while our country.
Is she like a suburban dad from the 1950s? You know, like, hey, son, you don't want to party hardy too hard on Saturday night, and you might get some, you might knock up some girl, some young dame.
You might get it with some gangbangers if you party hardy. So much to get into there. I love it. Newsmax it's great. This is perfect because Newsmax is absolutely trying to scoop up every Fox viewer that it can. It's trying to actively get even as their CEO admits that they misrepresent election results, they're still trying to appeal to that MAGA voter, and it is in every way positively fantastic. I do want to point out in Crenshaw's tweet, he says Lin Wood just wants donations for his legal fees. Donald Trump has raised $200 million off these BS claims to get his legal fees going.
I mean, what can you say other than just, this is that what I was talking about is the inmates are taking over the asylum. Like it's the sort of right wing is melding into coherence. I mean, that's why you're seeing like these Newsmax and OAN because they are coherent, whereas Fox News is not. Like Fox News whips up the roofs, but then they also have like quote unquote serious journalists and serious reporters and all that stuff, and like. Even that's like too far gone now. You need to be fully in the bubble. So yeah, I mean, it's just they need to whip these people up into a frenzy to get them to vote for their unpopular agenda. But then it's harder to control them. Like they've whipped them up too much. They're too whipped. They can't slow it down. They can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again.
So what do you think of this guy, Lin Wood? I'm going to show you some of his clients. Richard Jewell,
great movie.
Really? Yeah, there were multiple movies. You liked it?
The Clint Eastwood movie is actually really, really good. You should watch it. It's really good.
Awesome. I watched the Lifetime movie about JonBenet Ramsey. He represented her parents. Dr. Phil in an anti-defamation suit. Sheldon Adelson in an anti-defamation suit.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Natalie Holloway's mom.
State of Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I forget what it was about, but I think it was like a rights issue, like an intellectual property right. I forget exactly. Not that Howard K. Stern, the Anna Nicole Smith Howard Stern, a lawyer he represented, and then Gary Condit versus the National Enquirer over the Chandra Levy allegations. So do you think he's a grifter?
Oh yes, of course. But Lin Wood, the thing is that he's the best kind of grifter. You know, the best grifters believe in their grift. Like they're true believers in some way. Like they can't be purely cynical because then people will kind of see right through it in a weird way. Like they need to be high on their own supply in a certain way. But also just like Lin Wood just sounds like an 80s porn starlet name too. Like I refuse to believe that that's his real name.
It's actually L. Lin Wood.
Lin-Manuel Wood.
If you're from I went to all these like nerdy conferences when I was a kid, and Lin Wood you can tell where they were because they would always just go Lin Wood, and it was just like a part of It was just, that's all I think of is like a bunch of high schoolers going Lin Wood.
Yeah.
Anyways, when it comes to the election itself, it's actually, I don't know what's going to happen. Do you think that MAGA will actually boycott this, Nando, or do you think this is all a smokescreen and there's a big nothing burger and they will show up en masse? And will it matter?
I suspect that there might be like some people who boycott or whatever. I don't see it as a meaningful political kind of phenomenon. I think the vast majority of people will show up, and I don't know. I have no idea. I have no way of gauging that election because everything we know about the last election was that the state by state polling was very off. You know, that it was often off by more than the margin of error. And so I don't know what to make of the Georgia election. I can't make any prediction. I really have no idea.
Yeah, I don't either. I think the thing that was the main reason the state by state polling was off by so much, I think, was dependent on all of these people motivated by Donald Trump to actually care about politics on the right. And that, I think, was what really represents the big disparity. But if you want an actual poll result, Purdue prevailed in the last election, in the pre-runoff election, with 49.7% to 47.9% for Ossoff. And I mean, that one is actually the less close one in the polling now, but because Loeffler's down by like 7 in the polls. But I just don't know. We did ask our
explain to me how one of them is more ahead than the, like these are just interchangeable. Like both the Democrats and the Republicans are broadly like interchangeable in this thing. Like how could there be any difference really in the polling for an election like this?
I don't
understand.
I think impossible that Loeffler's it's which insider trading thing is more sticky. Loeffler Warnock is a preacher. Maybe there's a religious contingent in.
But I mean, it's like
Georgia,
they know what the stakes are. It's really like they're just warm bodies for either party. Like they're not, they're. I don't know.
We'll see as they try really hard to convince people that either they are for Trump or against Trump. We're for you guys. We got to take a break. When we come, that's the end of the show. Post game is next for members. Good God, it flew by.
When you're